Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Jan Grinshtein with us today. Jan's an interesting guy, which is why I brought him on. Initially, we had the sales calls together, and yeah, contrarian or a guy that's not afraid of speaking its truth, has a very interesting background as well. I recently updated his LinkedIn bio to 3x immigrant, X homeless, and 1x founder. He's building Sapien AI for product team that wants to ship 120x faster. That's a lot of X's right there.
Yeah,
And I believe you recently moved from Toronto to SF, right?
from New York to SF.
From New York to SF. So you moved your full family. You're going all in. So Jan, tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're up to.
Jesus, where do I begin? If I start from all the way to the beginning, I am, as you mentioned, three-time immigrant. I used to be homeless in New York. This November of this year will be exactly 20 years since I was homeless. Then I built a pretty incredible, successful design career across 5 different countries and 3 different continents in the agency world. I rose through the ranks from just junior designer all the way to art director, managing over a dozen people team, working with such companies like Microsoft, Volkswagen, BlackBerry, and then the list goes on. Then in 2014, I kind of moved back to New York and shifted to tech side and client side, and worked with early to mid stage startups as a first design hire in 4 out of the 5 startups I worked at. Some of my products and work were impactful to 3 different acquisitions in the last decades. And 2024, I decided to build my own company. So here we are.
Wow, man. Okay, well, let's start early with the homelessness period. How did that happen? What did you learn from it?
Oh, so there's an article that I wrote and then published on LinkedIn and Medium, I believe, last. Well, I keep saying last year, like it's 24. I'm still in 25 mode, if you will. It's always kind of difficult to adjust the new year. But late 24, yeah, late 24, I think I wrote that article. So back in 2006, to give you guys a bit of a, oh, here you are. Here's the article. Was it 20? Yeah, 24, October 24. Perfect. Um, there's a lot more claps on LinkedIn that I posted than on Medium.
Mhm.
But anyway, where it all began really is I was born in Soviet Union. Yep,
Oh,
that's me.
look at you there.
Very skinny when I was 18 years old there. I was born in Soviet Union, Ukraine side. I grew up in Israel, and in 98, before my military service, my parents sent me to United States to stay with my relatives. I fell in love with New York, and when I got back to Israel, I said one day I'm going to live in New York. That was like my promise to myself, my family, and whoever else. Uh, fast forward 2006, I find myself in New York as an adult, if you will. There's a lot of details that I mentioned kind of in the article of how I became homeless. It was a family situation, dispute, if you will. But I find myself on the streets of New York in 2006. And yeah, first couple of weeks were rough. And then I like to joke that Will Smith saved my life, even though I've never met him. I don't know the guy. I think he's a brilliant actor, but I don't know him personally. However, back in the day, you won't find this today, but back in the day, yes, I'm a little bit older than maybe a lot of people here. Um, there used to be bootleg DVDs sold on the streets of New York for like $4 or $5. And I found this film called The Pursuit to Happiness, and you'll find it might mentioned in the article. Uh, and I watched it in the corner of a Starbucks, kind of like with tears rolling down my cheeks, and relating to the character itself. For people who didn't watch this movie, I would highly encourage it. It's based on a true story of an investor banker, if you will, in New York that started as homeless and then became very influential and super wealthy in stock market trading and then whatnot. So yeah, that's really the story. But to short circuit this entire part of my life, I I essentially made a almost like a conscious decision that this thing is not going to break me, and so I went out and I figured out that I can make some really quick cash since I wasn't legally allowed to work in the United States. I was technically a tourist, um, and I was picking up random jobs on Craigslist. $20, $30, $50, $100, and then whatnot for designing flyers, designing invites, business cards, landing pages, banners for Facebook and whatnot. And that kind of helped me accumulate 3.5, I think, or $4,000 to help me rent my first apartment, which was a dinky studio basement in one of the crappiest parts of Brooklyn. And I still didn't have any money for furniture. So for the first, I think, almost half a year, I was basically sleeping on the floor, covering myself with my coat that I still have. There are two items that I still have and cherish. One is a case that I kept my laptop in with a small towel and some other items like toothbrush and whatnot that I carried around with me everywhere. Um, and um, and the coat. Yeah, it's a Zara used to make really high quality cashmere wool coats. They don't anymore, sadly. I still have that coat because that was the first one that I purchased when I just arrived to New York in 2006. Before I became homeless, I purchased that coat because it was cold. Um, so yeah, but I essentially managed to land one of the largest New York law firms as my client
Hmm.
in late 2000 and mid 2007. So it took me about 7 to 8 months from being homeless to getting to my first big client. And from there, it took off. Right after that, I landed as an art director at an agency in Israel and went on working with Microsoft and Volkswagen and BlackBerry and a host of other big brands. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow. Um, what a story. 7 months, eh? And yeah, I think what they often say is that it's homelessness is closer than you think, right? I guess there was like a part of ego on your sides, like I'm just gonna prove them wrong, but you also had to carry this and probably had some trauma that you're even probably still carrying to this day from that experience, right?
Yes, like when I was writing this article, I had to unpack a lot of things and remember things that my brain basically packed away so I don't, you know, relive the experience. But my wife helped me to unpack all of that. We're basically sitting on the couch almost every night and me going through basically paragraph by paragraph of different experiences, and she would like keep pushing me of like, this is exactly how it happened, do you remember what actually happened, and whatnot. And there were some pieces that I remembered that I'm like, oh my god, I even forgot about that. Like I quit smoking in 2017, so I haven't smoked in a while. And doing this entire part, and suddenly hit me that I needed to remember, and it started rushing back that, hold on a second, I used to smoke when that happened. How did I smoke? And then when I started digging deeper, I'm like, oh my god, I remember picking up butts from the streets, and miraculously, I didn't catch any diseases in New York picking up after people's, cigarette butts. um, thank God to that. But yeah, I it was a very emotional process unpacking everything, writing this article with my wife. Oftentimes, just bursting into tears because a lot of the memories were so deeply packed away in my brain that every time somebody would ask me about this, when I was willing to share with somebody, the way I shared it, it was so polished that it didn't sound as bad. It was like, yeah, I was homeless, it's fine, it happened, part of life. Like for me, it's like, yep, shit happens in life, and that shit happened to me, and that's all right. Like the first time I shared it publicly with somebody who's not related to me was, I'm a big fan of TED Talks. and I got myself a birthday present in 2015 as a ticket to a TED Talk, which is like the local chapters. There was like one in New York. I forgot how they called them. And I went to that talk. There was like round tables of people at the event, and as I sat down at the table, there were another two women at that table at the time. And as I sat down, they're like, "So, what's your story?" Right? Like the one of the first questions, like, "Who you are?" And I don't know why. I don't know what happened. Something like triggered me, and I just like blurred out my life story to both of them. And they're all like sitting there with their eyes open, and one of them is like, "You should be there on stage
That's
telling
TED
this."
material.
You're like, "You should be there, not sitting here." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess, but yeah,
For
who
sure.
cares?" Um, like I was interviewed on a podcast by Tom Lenoble. I don't know if you know the guy.
Well,
He's
he's
a
my friend.
Oh, right. You you
Referred you
you
to him.
referred me to him. Yeah, you referred me to him. And when I was telling him, he's like, "You have to write a book." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, probably. I don't know. I thought about it many times. I tried starting a couple of times, but it never went anywhere." So,
Right, right. No, you have such a special background, and I can relate to some parts of it. I don't think one I was that strong or had it. I always had some kind of big ego, but I was an exchange student in Hong Kong at some point, and I got all my shit stolen, right? And yeah, first thing I did is call my dad. Like my dad's he was always my savior
right.
up to some point in my life, right? So my dad's a great mentor of mine as well. Has always been an entrepreneur, but just like always this helicopter parent type of protection, not as worse as it sounds, but yeah, I would probably have reacted differently, or you should have called me up back then. I was up in Montreal, could have offered you a place, but I guess that also shaped you, right? How does that intertwine or overlap with the 3x immigration thing?
Well, I'm an immigrant. Like I was born in Soviet Union. I was brought to Israel when I was 10. I grew up in Israel. Then I went to Canada when I was 20, right after the military, and I was in Toronto for 6.5 years. Um, and then I had to move back to Israel because my immigration process did not pan out in Canada. And so I moved back to Israel and I restarted my life all over again, right? And then from Israel, um, I won a green card in 2013, right? So when I went back to Israel in 2006, I wanted to go to New York. Not going to go into details why I wanted to go back. I wanted to go to New York. Outside of the fact that I always wanted to live in New York, there is another reason there. But anyway, long story short, my first immigration was going from Soviet Union to Israel, which is a culture shock on its own. For people who don't know much about Israel or don't know much about Soviet Union, there's a stark difference between Soviet Union, where everything is controlled by the government. You don't have anything. You don't own anything. You go to the store, and your only selections of coffee and sugar is just one coffee and sugar or one type of tea. That's it. And then moving to Israel while I was still 10, I was already almost conscious, teenager, so I could understand things and see things. Like I was walking around with a jaw dropped, cars and candy selections and ice creams and whatnot, right? And then from there, going to Canada, which is another completely different culture, realizing, I think that's where I realized that I come from artistic background, being a painter and artist would not pan out as a long-term career for me. And I needed to figure out and shift and pivot. And that's how I found myself in doing a BA for architecture and interior design, and then found myself in web design and whatnot. But from there, going back to Israel, then going to New York, then from New York going back to Israel in 2007 after being homeless, and starting to build my life in Israel all over again, and then winning a green card in 2013 and going back to New York to live in 2014, right? So once again, it was when I got the news that I won the green card, I literally took a few weeks to think about it. Do I really want to go? Like I spent I came back to Israel. I had my agency at the time. I had solid clientele. I was making good money. Eventually, I got tired all of it. I decided to quit. I kind of sold. It's a story for another day, I guess. I sold my portfolio to a competitor, kind of hired by a competitor of my agency, and I was not a director at that joint agency then. So yeah, it took me a couple of weeks to think if I really want to now start all over again at what was I 33? Yeah, I was 33 at the time, and one of my friends in Israel, he's like, "Who cares? What do you got to lose? Like you got a chance here, go get it, see what happens. You don't like it, come back, right?" And when I moved back to New York in 2014, that's when I was at a pivotal road to figure out what I want to do with my life. I knew I didn't want to go back to agencies because I burnt out, hated that at a time. Uh, in Israel, around 2010, I picked up photography, and by 2013, I was already an award-winning and published photographer. And when I came back to New York in 2014, I'm like, should I pursue photography? And then realizing that, oh my God, there are so many talented photographers in New York. Like, who am I competing with them? Right? Even though, yes, I have awards, I published and whatnot, but in a dinky country called Israel, not in New York, right? In the pinnacle of creative and art in the world. And so the one thing that I remember having experience working with startups in Israel, because I spent some time being an angel investor back in Israel. I invested in probably 5 to 7-ish startups back in the day. Lost all of it. I was terrible at that back in the day, at least. But it was a great experience, and I remember how I loved the thrill of working with startups, and especially in creating something out of nothing. Kind of really was close to my heart. And so I decided I'm gonna go work at startups. Like that's what I want to do. And the first startup that I worked at in when I just came to New York 2014 was a 3D printing company, a consumer 3D printing company. Back in the day, it was like uh, the latest, greatest tech, if you will, on the consumer market. I think the first company that hit big was MakerBot. I was working at their competition. One of the former VPs of MakerBot started his own company, so I worked there. Um, and this is another point that when I mentor and coach other designers, product people, and whatnot is, or outside of it as well, sometimes, and I made that statement on LinkedIn some time ago, is sometimes you have to become nobody to become somebody again, right? And that's the thing
Yeah.
that I've learned from being homeless is that sometimes you have to be okay with I'm not saying degrading yourself, but being okay
Back to
shoveling,
basics.
yeah, shoveling shit for a little bit to get to somewhere if you want to get somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And so when I start working at startups, I realized that I can't just go. Yes, I was an art director at an agency, and I was making X amount of money, and I had a company car, I had a company sponsored penthouse not too far away from the beach. I had all these great things, but now I'm trying to enter a new space in a new industry. I wanted to shift into UX design. Um, I need to start somewhere. And so I accepted the lowest offer that I got from other companies. It was that 3D printing company that the offer was 60K a year. After taxes, it was like 35, no healthcare, nothing. I was living out of my savings basically most of the time, with rental in Brooklyn. Um, but yeah, and the company didn't survive. 10 months later, the founder took me out for a walk and said, "I love you, but I can't pay you anymore."
Oh boy.
Which was fun experience on its own. There was a first startup failure that I've experienced.
Mm.
So yeah,
When,
that's how I ended up in startups.
and when did you discover that entrepreneurship was for you? Because I see like 2000 in the 2000s you sort of launch your own consultancy. Why would that be potentially a better fit than seeking a job?
I was always entrepreneurial. My first entrepreneurial adventure was back in Soviet Union when I was 7 years old. I used to sell fake bubble gums, beaten up, but never gave the money back.
Oh boy.
So Soviet Union was a forbidden place. I would encourage people to read a lot about Soviet Union and how life was there. My parents' friends used to smuggle bubble gums from Poland. Those bubble gums were mostly they're called turbo. Turbo bubble gums had like an insert different cars, uh, and they were selling them on the black market. Now they were selling one bubble gum for 1 Soviet ruble. Now to give you things in perspective, my mom was a vocal and piano teacher at a college, and her monthly salary was 67 rubles.
How
So
much is that in
buying,
USD?
I have no idea, but you could put things in perspective. If your monthly salary is 67, let's say dollars, and one bubble gum cost you $1, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so they used to bring that smuggle back into Soviet Union and bring me like 5, 10 bubble gums, right? I would eat them. I'll create a little mold from metal of that exact bubble gum, and I'll put Play-Doh into it, and I'll put it on the heater overnight, so it will melts and molds into that specific mold. Wrap it back up and sell it half the price for half a ruble at my school. Uh,
Wow.
I was 7 years old, 6, 7 years old. Yeah, I got beaten up quite often for doing that, but I never gave the money back. And then in Israel, when I was 15-ish, I used to dumpster dive for old speakers that I would refurbish and sell when I was 15, 16 years old, because my family were a poor immigrant family. We didn't have money. And I started smoking around like 13, 14. And so I needed to buy smokes. How do you buy smokes? I need money. And how do you make money? Well, let's figure out how to make money. So refurbishing speakers and selling them was to make money.
Such a different experience from most of the folks I have on this spot, but usually I have a bunch of these stories of bubble gum in the schoolyard for sure. Last but not least, because we only have a couple minutes left here, Jan, this year was a lot of movement for you, right? You moved
Yes.
from NYC to SF, and a bunch of things happened in your company. How do you feel about last year? And what's if you have a crystal ball? What will 2026 look like for you and Sepien?
Last year was, I would say, a year of learning and changing, because we launched our private beta in closer to mid of 25. We onboarded around 11 companies. We got some people actually paying us for our product, but we learned so much that we had to basically shut everything down, go through a very deep retrospective to understand what did we do wrong, what we need to do better, what do we need to fix and then change. And that included also our name. Our previous name was Insight, and we had a lot of issues with that, where people mispronounce it, mistype it, misunderstood it. So we've gone through a rebrand process this year, and yes, I moved. I moved for several reasons. One, I wanted to be closer to San Francisco. I don't live in San Francisco. I'm in North Bay, right outside of it. Um, my wife wanted to be back in California. She's originally from California, and I personally was running out of money, and so we had to make a decision: either I go and find a job or do something else, or whatnot. And so we decided, with the support of my wife, to sell our house, so I can continue building this, because we are pre-funding. We have some angel investors, but we're not at millions of dollars in funding. We're very much between some small angel investment and bootstrapping, if you will, kind of like a weird mix. Um, so yeah, it's been an incredible year. A lot of big decisions, a lot of life changes. But I think everything was done for the better and for the best. 2026, if I had to guess what our year is going to be, is going to be a year of rapid scaling growth, because we're about to release something that we never done before, and no one in our space ever done before. So we're hoping for that to be our pinnacle of growth.
Very cool. Well, Jan, thank you so much for showing up. Where can people find out more about you and the company?
You can find everything about the company on LinkedIn, if you will. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me and reach out to me and talk to me. Our website is Cepien AI. You can see it here under my name. Currently, it's pre-launch website. So if you want to be on our quote unquote wait list, then drop an email there and we'll reach out to you once we relaunch the next iteration of our product, which I am incredibly excited about. That's magnitude better from what we had. We're introducing agentic workforce, we're introducing some new flows, we're introducing some capabilities. So yeah, I can't wait to shoot it all out into the world.
Thank you so much, Jan. That was Jan and Charles for another Founder